Today in our 2017 Jeep Cherokee, we're going to take a look at and show you how to install the Curt T-connector vehicle wiring harness with the 4-pole flat trailer connector. Part number is C56208. This is what your wiring kit's going to look like when you get it out of your packaging. As you can see, it's going to offer our 4-pole flat trailer connector. This is going to give us right turn and brake, left turn and brake, running light signal, and also ground to make sure everything functions properly. Now to do that, it's going to use signals it picks up with the T connector. You can see this is going to plug directly in line in our factory harness, and that's going to trigger our converter box to send out the appropriate signals to our trailer. So gathers it from behind the driver's side and the passenger side, goes into our box, then that's converted into a usable signal for our trailer. Now the great thing about the box is not only is this going to convert the signals from our car to be usable for our trailer, but this is going to isolate the trailer from the vehicle. So if there's any shorts in the trailer or on the cargo carrier, whatever you might be using, that's not going to get into our vehicle's wiring system. You can see the converter box has a ground wire. We're going to attach that to a suitable ground underneath the vehicle, and it also has a standalone power source. So we are not drawing the power through our vehicle's lighting system to put out to our trailer. It has its own 12-volt power input. It uses the power from there to send out to the trailer. That's going to prevent any kind of overloading on our vehicle's lighting system. Now to connect that 12-volt power, they've given us a roll of wire here so we can run that up to the positive side of the battery, giving us a fuse holder and a fuse so we can keep this fuse protected. There's also a dust cover that's been provided. That's going to come down around and just go over the end. Now typically this wiring stays in the rear hatch of the vehicle, so this is going to be used more just to bundle up our wire and hold it in place. They've given us a few zip ties here to do our installation. I would recommend having several more on hand. You're going to run out of these pretty quickly once we start running this 12-volt power wire up towards the front. And they've given us some butt connectors and some ring terminals. The only real suggestion I have on your butt connectors, if your connection is going to be made on the outside of the vehicle, like when we connect our 12-volt power wire to our fuse holder, I would replace the standard butt connectors with a heat shrink butt connector. Looks just like this. Does the same thing the standard one does. This is just going to give us superior moisture resistance, so we won't have to worry about corrosion, again, on those connections that are on the outside of the car. They've given us some black silicone here. We're going to need to run our connectors through 2 grommets, so we'll be able to seal those grommets back up, self-tapping screw for our ground, and then some double stick foam tape so we can get the converter box itself secured up and out of the way. Also a longer zip tie that can help in securing that converter box. Now to begin our installation, we need to remove most of the floor coverings and that from the vehicle. Just pull outward on that. We can get this set aside. We'll remove the 2 tie downs here on the outside corner. We're just going to rotate those and they're going to pop out. Now we're going to pop the covers up here on our cargo tie down hooks. We've got one little clip on each side you want to release. Then we'll remove the Torx bit screw underneath. It's going to require a T15 bit. We'll get this one set aside and do the same thing on the other side. Now we'll pop up on the storage bin on the driver's side. We need to get that out of the way. We'll also pull up on the scuff panel. Just need to release the pressure clips there. Got 4 of those. And right up here in the front corner on each side, there's a Phillips screw we want to take out. With those out, we'll release the clips here on the back side of our spare tire surround, and we can get it out of the way as well. Looks like there's one piece of plastic down there that's going to prevent us from removing that without removing the spare tire, so we'll get it out of the way. Now this part here, it'll just clip off, so you can remove that if you want to. Just set it aside. Now we're going to pull out on this bottom edge here. Going to work our way up around and start releasing those couple of clips. Just like that. Continue working our way up, and this top panel is going to have those same style clips we can just pull out on. That'll give us access to get in here where we need to be to get everything secured. I like to use a little screwdriver or something just to put in there, give us some room so you're not constantly fighting trying to hold that out. Now we'll remove the 2 Torx fasteners here on our tail lights. For these you're going to need a T30. Get that done on both sides of the vehicle. Now we just want to pull out gently on that assembly. You see we've got these 2 kind of push keepers that go in those holes. You just want to get those separated. Then we need to press down on the locking tab. Then we'll wiggle that plug to separate it. Now if we look on the outside here, we can see where our wiring runs in. We've got the grommet. That's where we're going to be bringing our new wiring out. So let's pull that out. Make a small cut on the side. Now we're going to take our plug, we're going to bring it behind that panel, and it's going to come out the same hole here, just like that. We're going to bring our ground wire out as well, and now we need to get these pushed through here. Now with those through, just going to put that grommet right back into position, just like that. And on each side there, we're going to put a little bit of dielectric grease. This is just going to prevent moisture from getting in our plug, which will eventually cause corrosion. We're going to do that on both sides. And we'll plug our T connector in place there. And you want to listen for the click. Alright, should be able to pull that without it separating. Let's grab that self-tapping screw. Get our ground wire secured off there. The tool I prefer is going to be a bit driver here. You want it to be a 1/4 inch. Let's get our hole started and the ring terminal secured. Now that should be tight enough to where you can't move that if you tried to wiggle it. Now we're going to use our silicone here. We want to seal that gasket back up, or that grommet back up. Get it all in between all of our wires. This is just prevent any moisture, dirt, or air from getting inside the vehicle from outside. Then we can grab our taillight housing. We get those slid back together. Again, listening for that click. And we'll put our housing back in position. Now once we have those 2 lined up, we just push it in and we'll replace the 2 screws. Now we need to bring the 4-pole flat connector and also our green wire out kind of into the trunk pan there. We need to find a good flat spot to secure our converter box off. It looks like it's going to fit really nicely between the vent here and this wiring. We could actually zip tie it right off to that wiring harness. Before we do that, let's get our power wire connected though. Just below where we're going to mount that, there's a grommet. We're going to be able to pass the power wire through that grommet and bring it in to make our connection. So feel the bottom of that grommet there. We'll make a small slit in it, just big enough for a wire to pass. And we can push that 12-volt wire up in. Now we'll strip the end of that back. And on one of the provided butt connectors. Since this one is staying inside of the car, it's fine to use a standard connector. Crimp that off there, and then do the black wire coming out of the converter box. Now we're going to use a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and we're going to clean off that mounting surface that we want to use down here. We're also going to clean off the flat spot on our box. Take our double-side foam tape, peel one side of that off. I like to get the other side started. Put that right on the back side there. And we'll stick it in place. Just push that on really well so we won't have to worry about it coming off there. We can come in, we can throw one zip tie above it here around the plug. We'll put one in below it just to give us a little bit extra security. Now Now that'll wrap up this side. We can get our panel pushed back in. Just be sure when you do that you line up the little white tabs with the appropriate hole all the way up around. All right, once we've got that seated properly, you want to pull that weather stripping around. Now our green wire we're going to run across our scuff panel here. Be a good idea just to kind of tuck it in behind that carpeting. And we'll need to pull out on the passenger side to separate those same clips we did before to gain access to our grommet there. Now we don't have to pull this out nearly as far as we did the other one just because we don't have to do all that mounting and everything we did before. We'll pull out the grommet. Now we'll just check to make sure our green wire is running where we want it here. And we're going to repeat basically all the same steps that we did on the driver's side over here on the passenger side to get this in place. Now let's start replacing our floor coverings here. But just like we did around the outside edge there, we'll need to get our weather stripping pulled back out here. Now our 4-pole here, what I would recommend doing is keeping it tucked underneath that driver's side storage area. So we'll put our cover on there, get it bundled up. Just tuck that down towards the rear. Then we can put this storage bin back in. Just like that. So not really changing the looks of the rear of the vehicle at all. But when we need to use it, pop that out. It'll be readily available. Now this is designed to come down over the door sill here. Gives it some cushioning, gives it some protection. We just allow our door to come down and close on it. Of course, don't put it anywhere near that. That'll cause damage. It'll be there and ready for use when we need it. Now we're going to start running our wire forward. We're going to go right with this wire loom that comes around. We're going to go right up over that cross member. Bring our wiring out here in front of the rear drive axle. Now as you run this wire forward, you need to avoid significant sources of heat, sharp edges, pinch points, or really anything that might damage the wiring. We get it zip tied off right back here. And with our wires zip tied off securely here, it'd be a great time to use what you have left of your black silicone sealant and seal up that grommet. I have another wire coming through there for a different installation, so we're not going to be doing that now. Now once I get in front of this second cross member here, I'm going to tuck in under this plastic panel. And once we get through that panel, here at the front, we want to create an anchor point just by using one of our zip ties. Get our wire zip tied off. And then we want to direct it up towards the front left side of the car there. To do that, we just want to feed as much up there as we can. Then we can go up to the top side, look down, we should be able to hook onto it and pull it up so we can work with it. All right, now you want to use a hook, or if you got small arms, you can reach down in there, but we'll bring up our wiring. And you want to visually confirm that you've got it all pulled up from that last anchor point up to here. We don't want any extra loops hanging down. Then we're going to zip tie that off right up here to this heavier loom that runs across. And bring our wire up. We'll keep a little bit of extra. Snip that off and we can strip it back. This is where we'll add on our heat shrink butt connector. Wrap it down there. You see the fuse holder comes stripped back a little bit. We'll take a little bit more off of that. One of the sides will add our provided ring terminal. The other side will go to the butt connector. Now we can use a heat source like a lighter. You can use a heat gun. You can use a mini torch. You'll just gently heat up the connector, and that's going to shrink down around our wire. Once it's fully shrank, it actually looks like the wire magnifies a little bit. It gets a little bit bigger, and you'll see a little bit of that clear gel come out of the end. Now we'll use a 10mm, and we can take the nut off of that stud right there. I'm going to pull that off and place my ring terminal right underneath it, and place it back on. Now we can place the provided 10-amp fuse in, pop our cover on, and then get it zip tied in place over here. Just down and out of the way, but somewhere where you can still get to it. There's a hole right in the bottom of that fuse holder, and we can actually put a zip tie through that, bundle up our wiring, and attach it right down to that wire loom we did when we brought it up. Now to test it out, we're going to plug in part number I26. We'll run through our signals, and we should see our lights respond accordingly. We'll start by turning on our running lights. Left blinker, right blinker, and then we can hit our brakes. With everything working properly, that's going to complete our installation of the Curt custom fit vehicle wiring harness with the 4-pole flat trailer connector. Part number C56208 on our 2017 Jeep Cherokee.
Click the link below to shop, learn more, or visit us at etrailer.com.